That's what I do best, baby. I need to stop. Veronica, I hate you because my niece Veronica her and her best friend started doing the lip bite thing, and now I do it and I hate it, and this is directly her fault. Veronica, if you watch my videos, I hate you.
Hi, says the girl with the right eyes that pairs pretty well when she hits you with the soft smile.
Hi friends, it's Rory, and today we're on like video 3 of the great film of 2021. Today I am directly stealing a video idea from a makeup YouTuber because that's what I do best, baby. What was I saying? This is a video idea that I stole from a beauty YouTuber named Abby Williamson. She's one of my favorite beauty YouTubers. And she, months ago, did a video called something along the lines of if I lost all my, like, the products that I would buy, or the 20 makeup products I would buy if I lost all of my makeup. And I thought about that and I was like, that's a fun idea. So this is, if I had to give up all of my books except for 20, what books would they be? And this was actually really hard. So at first I was gonna be like, but I will categorize, you know, series all as one, and then I realized that that's not in the spirit of the game, and so no, each book is its own book. So I decided at first that anything that I could watch in another media is removed. So for example, despite the fact that I absolutely adore my Fruits Baskets collection and it's the joy of my life to see it on my shelves, I can watch the anime, so that has to go. And despite the fact that Pride and Prejudice is one of my favorite characters, I have the movie and I have the miniseries, so that can go. So things like that, those are all out. If you are expecting something and it has a movie or a television version, I probably didn't keep it. So let's go ahead and get started. I have the 20 books and it was really, really hard. I had to like cut out a bunch of things like last second, but I think I have figured it out. So once again, these are the 20 books I would keep if I had to get rid of every other book. And I'm saying specifically that I would keep, not that I would repurchase if I got all of my books, because there are some problematic books on here and I do not want to have to give those authors money. And I will let you know what books they are so that you know who not to support, because even though I love them and I'm going to keep them, I do not want to continue to support them. Number 1, this is how you lose the time war. If you watched my favorite books of 2020 video, this should not be a surprise. If you follow me on TikTok and see my red cosplay, this should not be a surprise. I adore this book. It is now probably my favorite book of all time. There's not a month that goes by that I don't think about this book at least once. I love it so much. So naturally, I had to keep it. It's so good. And for what? So books 2 through 4 are all part of the same series. And that is every Raven Cycle book except for Dream Thieves, which is gonna hurt my roommate because Dream Thieves is her favorite of them, and that's because Ronan is her favorite character. But I personally think that Dream Thieves is really boring. Skip a large majority of it on my rereads. I love, absolutely adore the Raven Cycle. It's my favorite series of all time. Now, that being said, it's still really boring, and Ronan is not nearly my favorite character, and so as a result, I end up finding this book really boring because it is so Ronan-centric, so I would skip out on it. The other 3, though, cannot live without them, absolutely adore them, love them dearly. Mwah. Number 5 is Ella Enchanted. Ella Enchanted is my favorite childhood story. And the only reason it's on here, even though there's a movie version, is because the movie version is garbage compared to the book version. Like, if you're watching the movie version and you're thinking of it only in and of itself as its own creation outside of the book, it's fine. But if you're looking at it compared to Ella Enchanted, the book, it is garbage and I hate it. I have to keep the book. I'm pretty sure I've read Ella Enchanted itself approximately 100 times. I have parts of that book memorized and I cannot live without it. So it goes on this list. 6 and 7 are also parts of a series. And that is the second and third All for the Game books. So The Raven King and All the King's Men, respectfully. I just did a reread of the All for the Game series. It was so therapeutic because I was in a little bit of a reading slump from my depression. And so I just I re-listened to the audiobooks, and it was a delight and a half. God, I love this series so much. It's so good. I made a lot of memes about it. It's just really good. But if I'm looking at the series objectively, the first one is so much setup that I do not need. Even though the first one has one of my favorite lines of all time, which is, "I'm fine, Neil lied," and it's so good, but I don't need it because I have the other two, which are objectively so much better. But I could not be without the series because I am emotionally invested in all of the characters, and Neil Justin is my baby boy. I do not care that he is the son of a mobster. I do not care that he has probably for sure killed people. I need him in my life. So the second and third one go on. Plus, how could I live my life without Neil's roast to Rico in the second book? Like, oh my god, it hits so good. Number 8 is Howl's Moving Castle. Similar to the reason why I kept Ella Enchanted on, I kept Howl's Moving Castle on because it is one of my childhood favorites. And it is vastly different from the movie. This is not a knock against the movie. Howl's Moving Castle is my favorite Studio Ghibli film, but I tend to look at the two of them as cousins, vaguely related. Like cousins, they're related. You can tell they're related when you look at them because you can go, ah, yes, they are for sure related. They have some of the same features, but they are so different that no one would automatically assume that they are related. You feel? I feel like I described that wrong, but that's how it kind of feels between the two of them. Because you have the movie, and it's beautiful and wonderful, and I love it, and it's so nice, and just, it makes me feel warm. And then you have the books where Hal and Sophie are literally throwing poison at each other, and they just bicker and fight through the whole time, and it has one of my favorite type of like romantic relationship where it's just like, we love each other, fuck, that's annoying. I love them both for extremely different reasons, and so I had to keep Howl's Moving Castle on because I kind of like the book a little bit better than the movie, even though I absolutely adore the movie. Number 9 is Cinder. Cinder is the only Lunar Chronicle book that I kept because I like Lunar Chronicles. It's fine. But Cinder is my favorite because I am a Cinderella slut. If you've known me or followed me for a long time, you know that I am a slut for Cinderella. Like retellings and stories, and Cinderella was my favorite Disney princess when I was younger before Rapunzel came around. And I will fight tooth and nail for Cinderella because it sucks that people think that, you know, she needed a man to change everything for her when that's literally the opposite point of her. Anyways, I'm not gonna get onto my rant about how Cinderella is good and people just don't like feminine characters. Cinder was my favorite of them because it's like a perfectly contained story, in my opinion. If you take out the, like, very ending. Like, you can tell it's the first of a series, but if I could only read one, it would be the one that I would be fine with ending. Like, I didn't need to continue on with it. I just like the little mini Cinderella story containment. And maybe it's because with Lunar Chronicles, they kind of like, they're sci-fi fairy tale retellings, but because they're also a series, those fairy tale retellings end up being like interrupted with the rest of the plot. And this one's the first one, and so there is no rest of the plot. It's just the Cinderella story. And I like it. Love it. Absolutely fantastic. So that's the only one I'm keeping. I will miss Winter, which is my second favorite, but it is a sacrifice I am willing to make. Number 10 is Just Listen. I know that there is some hate for Sarah Dessen. I think Sarah Dessen books, the biggest thing is that they're painfully white. And a lot of people think that they're boring, and I completely understand where people are coming from, but Sarah Dessen was my favorite author when I was a kid. Like, when I was young, kid/teen, I own basically every Sarah Dessen book except for the latest one. And Just Listen has always had a very special place in my heart. It hits me deep. It really does. I just love the characters in Just Listen. I love the story of Just Listen. And it's been one of my favorite books since I was a little kid. I say little kid like I was 6 years old reading Sarah Dessen books. I mean, since I was like 13 and I read it. It hits the nostalgia. It makes the serotonin go burr. It's a book that I go back to a lot, and so it stays on the list. Number 11. This is one of the problematic authors that I'm talking about. Number 11 is The Host by Stephenie Meyer. I know Stephenie Meyer is not a good person. I know Stephenie Meyer is really problematic. I will never buy another Stephenie Meyer book. Never in my life. I know that all of Stephenie Meyer's books are just Mormonism. I completely get it. I know exactly what The Host is trying to do. I completely understand where it's coming from. I don't know what it is about this damn book, but it is a comfort book for me. Like, when there was a month last year when I was going through it, and I think I read The Host 7 times in 1 month. Like, I would listen to the audiobook all the way through, and then I'd start it over and listen to the audiobook all the way through, and then I started over and listened to the audiobook all the way through again. I don't know what it is about that book, but it radiates comfort to me. Maybe it's that I love all of the characters except for Jared, who can go die in a hole. Maybe it's just that when I originally read The Host, I was like, oh wow, the society that they have is very, very cool because they don't have money. Everyone just works and then they get the things that they need. I wonder why we don't have this father. And then I got called a communist, and ever since then I've been like, fuck you, Dad. Maybe it's the nostalgia. Maybe it's just that it's great to have in the background. The audiobook is fantastic and it's great background noise. Maybe it's just that I like it. I cannot tell you why this book is such a comfort for me, but because of that, it has to be on this list. I could not leave it off this list. Because you don't read a book 7 times in a month and then just not leave it on a list like this. Number 12. One of the last videos that I posted before my break, and also if you've been on here a long time, you know that I'm in love with the book series called The Gay Teen's Guide to Defeating a Siren. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite series. The 3rd one just came out. I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as the one that's on this list, which is the 2nd Gay Teen's Guide to Defeating a Siren. That is the one that I'm going to keep on here. I contemplated putting the 1st one on here, but I decided not to at the last second because as much as I love the first one, it is just setting up the universe. The second one is where it is at. The second one is a 5-star book to me. And I go back to it, and every single time I reread it, it's just as good. Naturally, it'll never be as good as the first time I read it because the twist ending, I already know it's coming, and so I see it and I'm just like, you bitch. But I still adore that book. Number 13 is the first Rise of Kyoshi book. That was my number 1 book for 2020. Avatar Kyoshi is so close to beating Coeur as my favorite avatar, but Coeur just constantly is above the edge. Even though I love both of the Kyoshi novels, the first one is just better to me. I like the kind of getting to the point where Kyoshi accepts that she's the avatar more than I like her being the avatar and having to deal with things. I think that her growth in the first book is more substantial than in the second one, even though the second one has more of my favorite relationship moments between her and Rangi. And also, it's just more entertaining in general. Number 14, Red, White, and Royal Blue. Is anyone surprised that this is not on my list? Because it is. I love this book. It's the world I wish that we lived in, but instead we live in this world, and so it sucks. But that's what good books are for, and that one is, and it's just a really, really cool MLM book, and I like it, and so it came on here. Okay, number 15 is one that no one would guess because I don't think anyone knows that I read this, and that is Music from Another World, which was suggested to me by one of my friends on Twitter, and it is fantastic. It was my first 5-star read of the year, I think? Of this year, I think. It takes place in San Francisco. It is about queer people in San Francisco. One of them is obsessed with Harvey Milk, so this is before his assassination. This book was everything I wanted We Contain Multitudes to be. If you've been here long enough, you know what that means. It's just two girls. It's sapphic, first of all. It's two girls writing letters back and forth to each other, but they end up falling in love, and it's so good. But also, it's not really even about the love story. It's about music, and it's about, finding your place and being queer in the past. And it's so good. Fuck. It's so good. I'm going to buy a copy of this book just so that I can have it on my shelves and reread it, because I'm going to reread it a whole bunch. It's going to become one of my comfort reads. I love it so much. Please read Music from Another World. It's so good. Number 16. Actually, number 16 through 18 are all by the same author, and she's very problematic. Number 16 is Tales from Shadowhunter Academy. Cassandra Clare is garbage, and we do not need to buy any books from her. However, Cassandra Clare's characters are my children, and they hit deep in my soul. And I cannot emphasize that enough when I talk about Simon Lewis, because holy shit, Simon Lewis is my favorite. I absolutely adore him. Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy is my favorite of any Shadowhunter universe book, because it is just so good for no reason. You wouldn't think it would be good because it's just a short story collection, but like the overall plot of Simon that is interceded, I don't know if that was the correct word, through all of the like short stories, so good. And also all of the short stories except for like one are really fucking good. Like, this is where we're introduced to James, and this is where we're introduced to Matthew, and also just like Magnus and Alex getting a kid. It's so good. It's so good. And also just George Lovelace as a character in general, so good. And for what? For why? For who? For how? I love this book a lot. Once again, don't buy any Cassandra Clare books. I say as I continue to talk about Cassandra Clare books. 17 and 18 are Clockwork Prince and Clockwork Princess in respectively. Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy may be my favorite Shadowhunter book, but The Infernal Devices is my favorite Shadowhunter series. And that is entirely because it has one of the best written love stories I've ever experienced. And that is the love story of Jem, Tessa, and Will, because I don't care what Cassandra Clare says, I don't care what the book says, I don't care what anything says. They're all in love with each other. They are a triad, and the greatest tragedy of all is that they could never be together, all three of them, because that is what they deserve. I still cry every single time I read Clockwork Princess, the epilogue. It's bad. Sometimes, you know those feelings where sometimes you just need to cry, you need to like get emotion out and you just need to let it go. And so you watch things to make yourself cry. I listened to the epilogue of Clockwork Princess on audiobook, and that's what gets me to cry. Because it makes me cry every time. And sometimes I will just tear up just thinking about Will Herondale. It's bad. It really is. Will Herondale is my book husband, and I don't care that I'm a lesbian. I didn't do Clockwork Angel because for a lot of, once again with a lot of these, it's just a whole bunch of setup. And I think that the story for the second and third book are much stronger, which is how books should be. It should get better on the more that you go, instead of getting worse and worse, as some other series do. We're almost done. Only 2 more. Number 19 is Speak. This is once again a favorite of mine from when I was younger. It's a book that hits me hard. I could have left it off because there is a movie, and I also really enjoy the movie, but the book hits much harder, and therefore it stays on here. I don't have a lot to say about this because it's kind of hard to explain why I love a book about a young girl going mute after she's been raped. Like, I can't explain why it hits me so hard and why it kind of is one of my favorite books, but it is, and so that's where it's going. Number 20, Arisato and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. This was my favorite book for a long time. It's still like my second favorite book after This Is How You Lose the Time War, but for a long time it was this book. Whenever anyone asked me what is your favorite book, this was the one that I would talk about. I have the last 4 chapters of this book memorized. I desperately want to get a quote tattooed on me from this book. I love this book so much. It is one of the best books I have ever read. I cannot wait for the sequel to come out. Oh my god. That's gonna be its own video, is just me reading the sequel. That's it. This was a very boring ending to this video, but it's the end. If you would like to let me know some books that you would keep in the comments, go ahead, we can discuss them. Maybe they're the same as mine, maybe they're different. I would like to know if you're willing to share. Fanfiction of the week. I decided that I'm not going to suggest a fan fiction for any of the books that were listed on here, and instead I'm gonna suggest a fan fiction for an anime. Haha. Specifically My Hero Academia, and specifically a Bakugo and Uraka fan fiction, because they're my favorite couple in My Hero, and I don't care what anyone has to say about that. Anyways, this is the first one in a series. The sequel is equally as good, but I decided to do the first one for this. The fanfiction is called Summer from 4 Seasons, third movement, Presto. It's by Wintrasone. I think that's how I'd pronounce that. It is a quirkless AU, but basically Bakugo and Uraka are both figure skaters, and they end up skating underneath the same coach, who is All Might, and they fall in love slowly through music and skating, and it is great. I love it. And you have pining Bakugo, which is like one of my favorite tropes because that boy can pine. I don't care that he's so angry, he can pine. As always, I hope that you guys have a great time with me today. There is a link down below to where you can register to vote. There is a link down below to where you can register to vote. It also has links with different social movements, ways that you can help make your world a different place, a better place. Make the world a better place. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye!
They don't wanna talk, they don't wanna feel the voice in my head saying I don't think I'm. They don't wanna talk, they don't wanna feel the voice in my head saying I don't think I'm real, 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 I don't think I'm. I don't know where my head's been at.